I am an astral pilot. So, have you guys heard of Inscryption? Created by Daniel Mullins, the creator of other such works as The Hex and Pony Island, Inscryption is a deck-building adventure game that is simply addicting. From the fun mechanics to the interesting characters, to the intriguing puzzles that reveal more story the more that are completed. That's what we'll focus on today, the story. Because I don't think that the story of Inscryption ends here. Now, I need to make a disclaimer, and no, it's not the spoiler warning. Probably should have already edited that in the beginning. No, the actual disclaimer is this. The main point of this video is discussing the possibility and plot points of a sequel. And while I love Inscryption and believe that this game is easily the most influential out of all Daniel Mullins games so far, I mean, you got people like Carp and Gizmat out here making Scrybes, or Leshy IRL on Twitch who made a physical version of the game. But Daniel Mullins does not really seem like the type to make sequels. Each game he made in the past are all vastly different in terms of gameplay, and if any part of his game does come back, it will most likely be in the form of some specific characters like with those other games. That being said, out of all the games that he has made, I think that Inscryption is the most likely to get a direct sequel, and there is something that I just find strange in this game. And by strange, I mean that there's something that a lot of people know about, but I don't really see people talk about the implications. But to get there, we need to look back, so I can show you my thought process, and just as a refresher for those who have forgotten. Inscryption on its surface is a simple horror game where you play against a man in a cabin, trying to escape by playing his strange tabletop game. But solve his puzzles, find his other victims, and win his game, and you are able to outsmart him. But when you do, something strange happens. You are able to restart this game, very literally, and start the second act of Inscryption. It is then revealed that the man you played against in the cabin is known as Leshy, and is part of a group of people known as the Scrybes. 4 beings who are basically gods in this fictional world, but these characters also seem to remember you, the player specifically, and the events that happened in the cabin. You then play what feels like a normal RPG, going to each land, defeating a specific boss in each one. But then, you find out about something called the old data, something that all the Scrybes are hunting for, and as you go through this act, one of the characters you fight, known as the Dredger, finds it and gives it to his boss, PO3. Using its power, the Scribe of Technology changes the game much how Leshy did in the first act, culminating in the third and final act. This final act is what I want to focus on today. In this act, you play PO3's version of Inscryption, using his mechanic, Energy, and playing more of an adventure game instead of Leshy's roguelike. And unlike Leshy's game, who had his bosses based on his subordinates, the Prospector, Angler, and Trapper, PO3's bosses are original characters, which is considered strange. Even in the small part of Grimoire's version of Inscryption that we get to play as in the finale, has her subordinate Royal as a boss. It's even commented on by one of the NPCs in PO3's game, which is also the only one that they don't let you speak to anymore after you exhaust their dialogue. And this is because the bosses are not original characters. Not really. Each of their bosses are based on one of the 4 Scrybes, the photographer being Leshy, the archivist being Grimoire, the unfinished boss being Magnificus, In fact, the entire board and its areas are eerily similar to the layout of the world map in Act 3, and that's because PO3 has a plan. Unlike the other Scrybes who just want to rule over the game, PO3 wants more. They want to upload it to the internet. And by playing the game, you've given them all they need to make sure it's actually a finished product. You completed the unfinished enemies, gave them access to your files, took the screenshots that would go on the store page, and connected them to the internet so they could upload it all. They had everything they needed, and they already won. They began the Great Transcendence and... PO3 is killed by the hands of Leshy, stopping the upload. Grimoire then takes the files that PO3 had access to and deletes the game, once and for all. Just to make sure it was good and destroyed, the disk is ejected from the computer and smashed with a hammer. So, that's it, right? I mean, PO3's plan was thwarted in 3 different ways at this point. Well, no, because that's not the end of this game. And no, I don't mean the post-game Casey's mod, which you unlock after beating the game. No, there is an entire ARG outside this game, which included doing stuff like going back to a previous build of the game, back when it was still called Sacrifices Must Be Made, and finding keywords, and I don't have time to get into this right now, but at the end of it all, this video was found. It starts on a computer screen that shows PO3 uploading Inscryption in text. It starts with the screenshots and the store page, then actually uploading the game itself, but it's interrupted for obvious reasons. But then the upload suddenly resumes. As the upload finishes, an image of a stoat appears on screen, the card that PO3 turned into at the beginning of this game, and it winks. PO3 lives, and they won. And it's this. This is what the title of this video means by the true version of Inscryption. When looking online about this moment, I have seen some people think that this is supposed to explain why we have this game in the first place. PO3 uploaded the game, resulting in it coming to our possession, when it's clear that that is so far from the truth. The most telling part of this is the photographer boss fight. In universe, the purpose of this boss fight is to take pictures for the store page of the game that PO3 planned to upload. However, as everyone in this fandom knows, there's basically nothing which indicates there's anything beyond the first act in any part of the marketing. Which makes sense from a meta context. After all, you don't want to spoil big parts of the plot in your store page. But still, these photos go unused. The second piece of evidence that this isn't the game that PO3 uploaded is the fact that we don't really play the game, and it's more that we're watching what remains of the recordings of the last person who actually played it, Luke Carter. Multiple times in your playthrough, a voice will chime in on the events that unfold, and on certain occasions their camera will die and you gain access to their video files, showing lore and secrets alike. Both of these factors together make it clear that this is just the type of game where we witness the events unfold. This brings me to the main point of this theory. At the beginning of this video, I said that I don't think that Daniel Mullins is the type to make sequels. A part of that thought comes from the common themes of his games, revolving around the video game's characters trying to escape the games they're a part of. Obviously, you have PO3 in this game trying to upload the game and escape to the internet. But you also have Reggie and his crew, plus Sato, escaping to the real world to kill their creator, and the literal devil in Pony Island trying to get you to delete the game to free them. But in the latter 2 cases, creating a direct sequel to those games would be messy story-wise, because the games is either deleted in Pony Island's case, or the characters have left the game and escaped to the real world. But Inscryption is the only game where we know that its characters and the vessel they reside in are still in a prime position for a sequel. We even would have a reason for that sequel to be happening in the first place. The first game is centered around the origin story of its upload to the internet, and the second game could feature us, the player, as the main character. What would the plot be in this sequel? That is a bit more complicated. We do know that the story of Daniel Mullen's entire universe revolves around this entity known as the Old Data, and more importantly, the Carnoffel code which used to be hidden inside this lone floppy disk. But in this hypothetical sequel, this malicious piece of data is now on the hard drive of everyone who downloads this next game. But actually knowing what the consequences of that would be? Who knows? Perhaps we are attempting to actually destroy the old data, or trying to stop the Scrybes' conflict over it. Maybe as we progress through this game, we get more and more messages from Game Funa, or the person who Luke was trying to talk to warn them.
Hey Luke, this is Herman from the Herald.
Maybe we'll even get the Magnificus and Grimoire acts that everyone so desperately wants. One thing that I like to think would happen in the sequel is that it would be called Botopia, after what PO3 called their game. But it's only really the tutorial section, and then practically immediately PO3 gets their head ripped off again. But this time the game does not get deleted and just resets. Either that or PO3's new and improved game would work as the Act 1 of the game, similar to Leshy's Cabin, with them acting shifty during the entire act, trying to distract you from the box with the new game button or the talking cards, acting as some form of irony since we already know what's going on here. My main point is this: we have not played the true version of Inscryption. We have only watched Luke Carter release the game into the world, and it's very possible that if there ever is a sequel, that will be the true version of the game, where our actions will be the one to directly affect the world of the Scrybes. Whether or not Inscryption ever comes back in the form of the sequel, there is at least one thing I'm sure about. The character of at least PO3 doesn't end here, either being referenced like Irving from the Hex, or straight up appearing like Sato and Rebecca. There are still many mysteries that can be solved from not only PO3, but by characters like the Mycologists, the Bone Lord, and more. Thank you for watching this video. Recently I've been extremely hyperfixated on this game, and plan to do a lot more videos on this subject. Maybe I might even make a video like Carp and Gizmat where I make my own Scribe OC. Whether or not I do, you should subscribe so you see if that happens. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a nice day.